to do more in development in that sense.
That is. I once thought of an assembly routine. I had somebody, I think Hannah Lifson, I even had her working on this for a little bit, but it didn't get off the ground. Again, because of the paper tape.
Yeah, but this was a real limitation to going further.
And you know, we had these flexor riders which were always on the blink.
Yeah.
It's essentially we were limited to using the computer for computation. And
Penny, a little bit about, you know, from your point of view, the impact on, you know, the country.
Well, this is one of the things I'm proud of. I feel that I made a certain contribution to Israel in getting the message of computers across to various segments in the country, the government, the army, the scientific community. I believe that more could have been done if more people were given more access to the computer than were, which I thought was an unfortunate.
But it probably forced them to get another machine earlier than they would have.
They didn't get machines.
Well, actually, yesterday Tzvi said he was on some group that did a survey of new machine for the Army, and that one of the reasons he felt they chose the Philco S2000 was the relative closeness of the order code of that machine to the Weizac, what programmers had learned on that. Do you concur with that? From what or didn't you know anything about that?
Well, when the decision was made to buy the Transac, I believe I was in the States for a year. I went to the States in 59, 60. I was involved with the Transac. When I was in the States, they were doing the acceptance test for the Transac in Philadelphia.
In Philadelphia.
And I was involved on this project quite strongly with David Cohen and Alex Oren. And then when the Transac came to the country, I was...
From my recollection, as it turns out, I think that one of the engineers on the computer project at the Institute for Advanced Studies, Cy Wang, actually worked on the Transac development and may have had some, influence on the relative closeness of the...
No, the Transac was essentially a Lenormand type machine. But I know that, shall we say, the first generation of computer users in this country, almost all of them had studied computers with me.
In your courses.
Either the Weizac or subsequently in the Transac. When the Transac came, I was essentially one of the people who taught the use of the Transac to the people in the Haifa and various places. You come to IBM, now it's already different, but the top leadership of IBM, their first meeting with computers was through me.
David Cohen?
Well, Dave Cohen has had a better recollection of me. He says that I was the only person who answered his letters when he was in the States writing here, looking for a job. I was the only person who would write him and give him information of what was going on here.
You mean IBM here or IBM?
David Cohen is manager of IBM Israel, and this is why, so was, early.
Is he around?
No, he's not. I already checked. And
about 2 years ago, I was up at IBM It just I came and saw Dave Cohen. Then he says, "What happened? At one time you were Mr. Computer. Everything inside the computer was you were at the center of things. Why are you now at the periphery?"
What was your answer?
My answer was that I have a position at the Weizmann Institute of Science, where one has to do research,
right.
And I just had to decide. I have to want to do research, and my inclinations were toward numerical analysis, so I continued with numerical analysis, and slowly got disengaged from the computer world, but never completely.
Never.
I mean,
during the course of Penny's discussion, Hans, did anything else come to mind?
Well, a few little things. And that is that the history of computing really started with the use of computers for science. Whereas today, when you're going to buy a new computer, the emphasis is on the commercial applications. People will tell you that this computer can do, we have software ready for almost any commercial application you might think of. Whereas this is a complete changeover. That in the early days, the machine was used to solve.
It was an instrument to solve
scientific problems, rather.
And it's not purely commercial now. I think it's more, things like office automation, things that presumably to help an individual do all the manipulation of information that they need. Yeah, but certainly not scientific application.
Well, I was aware of the commercial aspects of computers early. I remember at the Central Bureau of Statistics, they had people coming from the States, from the Census Bureau, talking about the use of computers in data processing. I remember these discussions and meetings. But, for instance, in 1958, I made a trip in Europe to visit various computing laboratories, essentially to find out what numerical methods were being used in the various laboratories. So I was in Rome at the Institute for Numerical Calculus. I went to Switzerland to the ETH. I was in Stockholm they had their IAS type computer, if I remember.
Where
in Sweden, in Stockholm.
I don't recall that. Yeah.
Yes, it had IAS type.
Yeah. And then I was in England, NPL, and I was in France. And I just determined that the mode of operation was more or less the same as at the Weizac. As far as numerical methods were concerned, there weren't that many differences. And although in Switzerland, of course, Ruhrman was started as some sort of automatic programming project, it was still elementary.
What about early writings? Did was there a programming manual? Were there any writings about, which you used for your courses?
No, it was all the oral tradition.
Notes that you had, and you really didn't give out material. I made an attempt to have somebody write up my notes. Several times. Who was it?
Huh?
You would try to get somebody else to write up your notes, and
my lectures.
They didn't do it.
I would have had to edit them essentially, and I'm very allergic to writing.
Was there a programming manual? Did you write anything about
there was a sub write-up of all the subroutines.
Yeah, and I think that
this was
I dealt with that. Yeah.
Yeah. Was there a log of what went on with the Weizac project? Hardware, software? Was there any diary which, essentially was kept?
Okay. Yes. We used to have meetings, I think once every 2 weeks in Professor Pecker's office,
Yes.
where the slanging match between the programming staff and the engineering staff.
Much later, wasn't
Was that later?
Much later.
Much later. What about, let's say, on the hardware, Tzvi?
We had a log, of course.
Where is
the
it?
operators kept the
the log of what got done on the machine.
Who worked hour after.
What about the hardware development? Was there a log of progress in the hardware development and in subroutines,
Subroutines, yes.
There was, subroutines there was, but the hardware...
There were drawings, there was
So it was in the form of drawings, I understand, but there wasn't anything like a log of progress, things that got done, week to week.
No, there was a log of sure, of course, a log of failures, a log of...
Okay. And were there, at these meetings, were there any minutes?
Yes.
No.
There were?
Yes, I have them.
You have the minutes?
minutes?
I want to see them. Anything else? Because I think we'll probably want to wind
I
up.
just have one question. Something came up yesterday, maybe you discussed that you did something that seemed like it was an interpreter for something you were talking about.
Yeah, there were, Penny already
discuss that?
spoke,
Okay.
about that. Penny, anything else we'd like to put on the archival record for, about the Weizac project?
And just one curiosity, we had these programmers who were writing in machine language.
Yes.
And they were quite good, some of them. And when they bought the CDC,
Mm-hmm, the 1604, right.
which came with a Fortran compiler language.
That was like 1962?
63.
63, that in fact it arrived.
No, it must be earlier. End of 63, the Golem Aleph was already beginning to operate.
Yeah, I know, but 63 it was delivered here because I remember being here for that.
Because I was away when it was delivered.
Yeah.
And some of the people were saying that they want to have facilities for machine computation interacting with the console, and I said that once the Fortran will be around, machine language would be dead.
Okay.
And my prediction was fulfilled at the time.
Okay.
And essentially, this was the...
Until the era of the microcomputers. I think we'll want to close off this now. We'll take a break and then go on to the Golem project. Thank you very much. Thank you. I really want those minutes.
I was the one that had them typed up every week.
I noticed I could join Weizmann Institute in 54.
Yes.
Yeah.
And he in 55.
Yes. I remember one of the things I did on the Weizac, I wrote a linear programming problem. For the army, I think somebody requested me.
Have room when they all get
What
together.
was the name of the Wellerkamp?
Wegematic 1000.
Wellerkamp.
Yeah.
So you can't-
WEG
have to rent
Matic.
room with the sandbox.
There was also an Elliot computer by Mark. What was the name of the president of Elliot? Question about that. Huh?
Jim Shoney would know. I should remember.
I'll be back. I'll be here in 10 minutes. Yeah?
Okay.
You want me to respond to it, or you can?
Were you very much involved in the Golem thing?
Sure.
Oh, you are then, State.
I don't know how it's going to be structured. Shmuel will
So they each have two. So
come back. And
I was on the systems group.
yeah, no, absolutely, and that's.
and they will.
It's time to have coffee off.
Yeah, there's a break.
Yeah.
Right, we don't need me anymore.
Well, except, to whether you were involved in the Golem project.
A little bit.
Yeah, well,
A
just stay
little
a few
bit, yeah.
minutes.
If you can,
Just stay a
hang
few
around.
minutes and you'll look at it.
It's an enjoyable thing to, to
Yeah,
hear this history.
you don't serve anything, but
It's supposed to be here. I'm going to go down
Then
and yell at them.
why doesn't somebody in your department care enough about it to serve something?
well, it's Kevin. I'll be back.
Okay, and I'll go and make sure some juice
It
comes.
really makes me so mad. Why should you make sure juice comes? Let them get their own juice. It's true, they act as if they're doing, we're the guests, and we let them do something. They don't do anything. They think we're doing it for us for some reason.
Yeah.
I was so mad about it. He liked it, he said. He liked being interviewed. He says it's a vice. He's sorry he likes this vice. But he's like, he thinks he's doing Jerry a favor. I said, you're not doing Jerry a favor. And he says, well, then again, obscure. Yeah. I bet you now he'll change.
Maybe after this.
No, he said last night he enjoyed
Because
it. And he's mad at himself.
he said, it's not condition for that.
And unfortunately, he's very good in some other
His
places.
role, it was his
But
initiative.
it's incredible.
And it was really important. I felt that it was important to have this record. Because I don't have the archives I set up about 9 years ago or something like that. So of course I lack much material. I don't have no archives for years. So I think that this would be a good way, if I interview him and telling the story. And he has
He's very
כן, בבקשה.
He has, I guess everybody can do everything. He solved even his problems. He reduces them to the elements, and it's a beautiful solution. It's a core. But as far as the environment or communicating or leading a group in the department or having students, he doesn't. Even his students, it's always like he's the master, like these people. And it's not like. It's a different thing. And you see it in the archive. So it's one thing not to talk to the newspaper. That, you can claim not to talk.
After all, I guess it would be in the interest of people to have the record of that. That's if we have archive now.
If you have any sense of history, he's so interested in history, why isn't he interested in this history?
Who?
Hussein Khayyam refused to do anything for the archive, but now maybe he'll change.
Yeah.
So that's maybe why he says it's a vice, because he sees he doesn't like to change his mind. That's another thing. Where's Richard? Did he go to?
He went to get some coffee. He's not feeling great. The jet lag's really hitting him.
Yeah.
Where did he get all this
He
equipment?
brought it.
And his field is political science?
He's interested in communications and in lots of things. He's sort of one of these people that he wants to ultimately write a book on the history of computers, but
He will. His style is very good.
Yeah, he's already written a book on the military, the influence in the States, how computers were really driven by the military. You see the first big computers came to solve ballistic missile problems. Actually, the thing they were talking about the commercial was a two-phase process, because you couldn't really have commercial applications before there was input-output equipment. Interfacing.
All right,
I'm sorry,
it's a
I
very
missed time.
interesting discussion.
It is whether people at that time thought even of this possibility of using it for
Commercial. Well, IBM clearly, with the
That
first
was
defense computers, starting from that, they began to think immediately.
See, but there's two different classes. One of the things about scientific problems, they're characterized by very little input, very little output, but very heavy computation.
right.
So really, when IBM came, they had lots of input for commercial, keeping track of every inventory, for example, and lots of output. So they had the punch cards input and the printed output.
Better go recapture Schmiel.
When they could mix that with this big central processing unit, so that's what they began to do. And then they began to change the input and output to faster, to the magnetic tape. When the magnetic tape came, that was a revolution. That was a revolution. Speeds. So before that, when you had it in mechanical, it was too slow. Oh, I want to tell him, excuse me, I meant to tell him I called
Who's him?
Cat.